Welcome to Geektionary. My name's Corey Hales, and this is the geekiest podcast you'll probably ever hear, where I will try to teach you, along with my friends, about the nerdier things in life. Let's talk about it. Alright, so this is Sarah, it's not spelled the way you think, and we're right now recording in my basement because I'm awesome, and we're going to be talking about NASA.
Yeah, because NASA is also awesome.
Very awesome indeed. And, really, when you think about nerdy stuff, what's nerdier than space and science and physics and all that other good stuff?
So?
Microphones can't pick up nodding, right?
I realized that after I nodded.
Yeah. Good. At least, yeah.
I'm new to this whole thing. Doing my best.
Yeah. All right, so do you know what NASA stands for?
Hey, I don't like that you're testing me on this, because I know
you're the one
up in front of you.
You got so excited when I mentioned one of them was NASA, and you demanded that you be part of it, so I expect a few things.
I believe it's National Aeronautics and Space Administration.
That's right, yes, but I do remember you were looking at my notes. So, yeah.
You're right, I've cheated on this entire test.
Yeah, absolutely monstrous. All right. When was it formed? You knew that earlier.
1958. I did know that.
What month?
No.
Okay. It was July 29th, which and it used to be NACA, which you told me about, and I was not aware of. And when you said it started in 1915, I thought you were just
making up numbers.
Yeah, just like hyperbole. It was such a long time ago. It might as well have been 1915, but no, it was. It was
sweet.
The National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics, which also a good name.
Yeah, no, it's actually really interesting. When NASA was formed, it absorbed all of NACA into it. They got all their stuff as well as all the new stuff. So
yeah. I was just reading how none of the people lost their jobs. They didn't lose any money from the budget. Everything. It was just basically turning the C into an S, and everything was A-okay.
Yeah, and adding a whole ton of money.
Yeah. When was the American Civil War? Because no. Oh, geez, I'm bad. No, 1915 is closer to World War I. God, I'm bad at history.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah. Because my immediate thing was, Lincoln at the same time as the Emancipation Proclamation. It's we need to get to the moon. And
where are you segueing?
Yeah, I'm very bad with history. I'm very bad with history.
No, the whole thing about NASA, anyway, was with because the Soviets launched Sputnik, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So all of America was freaking out, and they decided to throw a ton of money at the space program, which is something they have not done since then. Since now the budget is very, very sad.
Yeah, that depresses me so much. It's we went to the moon, and I read an article a while ago that mentioned that while we're all oh, that was so amazing, oh, everyone was watching their TV. A lot of people, one, didn't care, and two, didn't approve of the whole thing.
Really?
Yeah, they thought it was a waste of money. They didn't see the point, which I can kind of understand, but...
Well, if they're talking in terms of education or healthcare or something that they want the dollars to go towards, sure, but
Yeah.
NASA's a pretty worthwhile thing to be spending our money on, especially if it's the non-military branch, it's research.
And it was around the time of Vietnam, though, too, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, so that's another reason why people weren't huge on the moon landing, because they had stuff on Earth.
Some other concerns.
Yeah.
A little closer.
People dying overseas versus Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong dancing on the moon, playing golf and stuff like that. Those are also two really good names. You don't hear those types of names anymore. It's always Lance or something.
You need something badass if you're going to be an astronaut. If I was going to be an astronaut, I'd change my name to Steely something or other.
Steely Dan.
Yeah.
Just like the band.
Dan,
yeah.
You're right.
You'd be Steely. What an awful idea.
That is useless.
Yeah. When did they land on the moon? That was 69. Yeah.
69.
That was Apollo 11. Was Sputnik launched and then they started the Apollo program, or was that going? Okay, so they were.
Sputnik was up there.
Yeah.
And so everyone was wow, America is terribly behind, and it wasn't just a military thing, because they launched ARPA around the same time to try and work on the military side of things.
What is ARPA?
Okay, I can't tell you what it stands
Okay.
for, but it's basically like a military arm of NASA. Like NASA
Oh,
is just research,
like-
ARPA is for like, we're going to have lasers from space that will blow up your country.
Yeah, Ronald
sort of thing.
Reagan's Star Wars program.
Exactly, that came out of ARPA.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. That's kind of awesome.
Yeah, it was. So once Sputnik happened, it was more of it was like a public relations crisis. So they're like, we need to show everyone that America is the best country and we're going to beat the Russians to the moon. And...
Yeah. I recently watched a movie called Iron Sky.
Yes.
Yes,
what about the Nazis who
Nazis,
have a moon, what is it, a moon colony of
yeah,
Nazis?
And it wasn't very good, but it is at the same time weird and charming. First, a black male model and an actual astronaut land on the moon, discover the base. The black guy's captured and turned white, and then turned into a sort of Nazi. And then they go down, and the Nazis are there for, it says 3 months, but they're still dressed as Nazis, still like the leather and the big jack boots and the swastikas and everything, and
well, how else would you know they're Nazis? They have to show it off.
But no one on the planet seemed to care that they were Nazis, just moseying around New York City. It's pretty bad.
No one reacted.
No one cared, yeah. Some black guys did when the black guy who didn't know that he was white. Oh, it's such a stupid movie.
I'm so confused. I wanted to see this movie, and
Yeah.
I'm just generally baffled by whatever you're talking about.
It's very, very weird. I recommend seeing it, but maybe not seeing all of it, because it gets to a point where you're like, this is just dumb, is what this is. What were we talking about before I started talking about Iron Sky?
I don't know, but I like it.
Yeah.
You were talking about how NASA planned to put Nazis on the moon.
That's totally,
confusion about history.
NASA and Nazi,
Yeah.
hand in hand, kind of makes sense.
It's a conspiracy, man.
Yeah. I've heard about how many, like, dogs and monkeys and stuff that Russia sent into space to basically murder, just to test stuff out. And I've also recently heard a bunch of manned missions to space that failed horribly. You can, online, there's audio of a Russian person pleading for his life and then cussing out and damning everyone that was involved with him as he starting slowly and speeds up as he speeds toward Earth. It's really unsettling.
That was actually a really interesting story, though.
Mhm.
I wish I could remember the guy's name, but he went up on that mission knowing
That he was going to die. Yeah.
And he did it because he didn't want Yuri Gagarin, I think is how you pronounce his name, to take the spot.
Yeah.
Because he was, an important public figure, and he didn't want him to die, so this guy took the mission.
Yeah, he did it out of national pride, which is kind of, you kind of got to hand it to him, but at the same time,
yeah, you can tell the national pride didn't mean so much to him as he was about to burn up upon re-entry.
Yeah, it was a lot of people that were sent up to die. Lots of them not being informed. Yeah, you hear about Russia doing that all the time. Did America really have a lot of any? They had a dog. I know that.
They had monkeys too, actually.
Okay.
You can actually see them. It's very creepy at the National Air and Space Museum at the Smithsonian in Washington.
Are they stuffed?
Yes, they have creepy taxidermied animals that were sent to space.
That's not. I don't like that. That's creepy.
No. I thought it was a doll at first, and then I got closer and closer to the exhibit. I was like, oh no, and it's this sad story of a monkey that didn't know if he was going to die and then froze to death or something like that. So
that, like, I'm kind of glad, like, better a monkey than a person, but at the same time, that you're a monkey, you just know bananas, and then you're sent out into a place that you never could conceive of before, and then slowly freeze to death.
Well, the thing is, in a lot of the animal cases, they didn't even try to get them back to Earth.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't send them with, enough oxygen for a return trip or anything like that because, budgetary constraints, and they knew they weren't going to make it, probably.
Yeah, and they were probably just like,
it's
they were probably just like, well, we have a bunch of monkeys. I don't think it matters, and
we have a whole room full of monkeys. We'll just keep sending them up.
Yeah, like in that one Simpsons episode with Mr. Burns having the room filled with monkeys chained to typewriters, and they're hoping that they'll write the world's greatest novel, and that's one of my favorite quotes because he grabs a bit of paper from one of the monkeys' typewriters and says, "It was the best of times, it was the blurst of times," and he freaks out and starts beating the monkey. This episode has kind of gone for a lot of animal abuse already.
Yeah, it's staying dark.
It's
a dark place.
Well, what's darker than space? And so
no one can hear you scream.
Exactly, yeah.
Tying the pop culture thing though with The Simpsons, it's interesting the way that NASA is portrayed in pop culture. It's always portrayed like really heavily.
Hmm.
Like
What do you mean heavily?
like it's shown all the time, you know, like most do they talk about the Department of Agriculture anytime there's a farm in a movie? No, but
No.
like NASA's something they bring up, and I think from what I understand, Americans think that there's a lot more money going in and a lot more stuff going on with NASA than there actually is.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's like less than 1% of the budget, or like 0.5% of the entire national budget. And
Mhm.
Americans think it's like, you know, a quarter of the budget's going towards space exploration.
Yeah, the thing is that most of the people that I find that complain about budget things like that, like X amount of money is going to the military, X amount of money is going to NASA or agriculture or whatever, their percentages don't really add up. It's
To
like
100.
there's like a quarter and then half and then 3/4 and then 12/8, which
Mhm.
is an actual fraction, but it's a what's that word? Anyway, making people think it's not good. But yeah, so there's the Apollo missions. Once that was done, I think the last one was 17. Then they started doing Skylab, which wasn't that a joint thing with the Russians?
It was. It was actually, I think it was the Apollo Soyuz spacecraft that
Yeah.
was sent up, and then Skylab was also joint with the Russians. It was,
Mhm.
well, it's kind of in the same way that the International Space Station started out. It was due to budget constraints, so they sort of said, hey, we have a spacecraft and you have a spacecraft, let's patch them together since we can't afford a whole spacecraft.
Yeah, I just picture this jury-rigged jalopy, kind of
Yeah,
just
just duct
a
tape.
whole bunch of
and
rockets taped to it. Yeah,
these Russian guys going, I swear, man, it'll hold together, you know?
yeah. We killed 43 monkeys, proving that this thing will work. Skylab, I don't really know much about it. I hear more about the International Space Station than I do
Mhm.
Skylab now, but
Well, for
Skylab
one thing,
crashed to Earth, didn't it?
it did.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's why I probably haven't heard much about it in a
Well,
while.
it was they intended to go back and repair it, but by the time they had, I believe it was one of the space shuttles they were going to send up to repair it, and by the time they had that ready, it was already scheduled for re-entry. So there
Okay,
was
so
nothing they could do.
yeah, that's too bad. There needs to be, I genuinely think there needs to be a lot more space exploration, a lot more money should go into NASA within reason. Yeah, we're screwing up this planet. And one of the things I remember, the first things you and me talked about was Moon, and how we both think that that should totally be going underway because there is helium-3, which was part of Iron Sky. There's helium-3, and there's resources up on the moon that we could use and would solve a lot of problems.
Well, it is
So,
sort of happening. Like, I think capitalism is really doing an interesting thing for space exploration because as NASA is no longer able to fund, let's say, cargo trips, now SpaceX is doing it. Like, they
Mhm.
just sent up,
is that
whatever it is,
Richard?
the Dragon craft?
Is that Richard Branson's?
Yeah, and James Cameron and a bunch of other weird
Huh.
people are all involved.
Wasn't it like NASA had a patent on space exploration, and it recently went public because patents only last for so long before it goes into the public domain?
I don't believe that's true
No.
at
Okay.
all.
So
I've never heard it anyway, so maybe it is, and I'm like grossly undereducated. But
Okay.
from what I understand, like there's always been, like it's just something that it costs such an enormous amount of money
Mhm.
to go into space. Like that's why it's usually been a government enterprise, right? But
Okay.
now it's the people that can afford to do that are corporations, and they know they can make money from even private space. Oh, that's what Richard Branson's involved in, private space travel.
Yeah. Would that strictly be like from basically just a more expensive plane trip?
Pretty much, yeah. We'll just fly you out into
Yeah.
space,
You
fly
get
you back in.
get to boogie around up there, and then you get to
Mhm.
come back. And I don't know if I would ever do that, even if I had the money.
Why not?
If it's strictly for the goal of traveling from one place to the other, that to me seems extremely wasteful.
Well, it's not from one place to the other. Like right now, he already began selling tickets on it, and it's $200,000 a ticket, and it's just to go into space. Because like, how else
Yeah.
would you ever get to be an astronaut, right? You
Yeah.
either have to be rich or you have to be an astronaut with NASA.
With that though, in the term space tourism, because that's what it is, would you still have to undergo all the stuff that the astronauts do, like
You
going
have to go
into?
through training and medical
Okay.
checks, and yeah, it's quite thorough.
All right, so I still probably couldn't go up to space if I wanted.
Well,
But
it's not like being an astronaut. You don't have to take all the tests, so you don't have to be
Mhm.
smart. You just have to be able to not throw up if they send you up in a
All right, and
spacecraft.
you think the main thing keeping me from being an astronaut is that I'm not smart? Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's very sweet of you.
That's what I'm here for. Crushing people's space dreams. all the
Yeah.
time.
They do have that thing where they Russia does it. I think the States has it too. You can go up and experience zero G.
Yeah, I've
That
always
looks
wanted to
so
do
cool.
that.
Yeah. I first saw it actually in Jackass too, which kind of doesn't help me in terms of the argument that I'm smart enough to go to space, but
We all believe you, Corey.
yeah, yeah. It was they had this awesome song that was in Russian too, and it took me months to find out what it was. But yeah, I would so love to do that. Even if I think you're only really up there for maybe 20 minutes. But
That's all. That's short.
that's all that you really need though, because that would be so intense. Even if you were up there for an hour, it'd feel probably like 20 minutes because you get to float around and all that awesome stuff.
Did you see the video of the cat that they sent up on one of those? I felt really bad for the cat, but it was also a hilarious YouTube video.
I imagine the cat just started vomiting or pooping.
Just freaking out a little bit,
Yeah.
like walking in the air. It
Yeah.
was adorable.
Adorable and tragic.
Yeah, my favorite.
Yeah. Ugh. One thing that I remember growing up and when I was really interested in the space program when I was maybe 9 and that died, I always remember hearing about the Canadarm
Mm-hmm.
and how Canada was so proud about having the giant manipulator arm up there, which it has been super helpful, but I can never really understand what it's really doing, you know?
Well,
It's mainly just for repairing stuff. That's not like that's bad.
But the reason it's an enormous deal is not because the Canadarm itself is really cool. It's the fact that Canada was able to do that. Because in the International Space Station, there's a European section.
Mm-hmm.
There's Russian, there's Japanese, there's America, and there's Canada. Like, how are we up there,
Yeah,
We're Canada. But
yeah.
no, it's cool.
I actually remembered, I didn't even have to look it up, I remembered one of the Canadian astronauts, Roberto Bondar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which is, I don't know why I remember that name. I don't remember what she did other than going to space.
She's awesome. She's very cool.
Yeah? Have you met her?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah, she's been to Calgary a number of times for different things.
That's
so,
cool.
Yeah.
Get her autograph?
No.
Too bad.
And it's the worst story. I once saw her once in public.
Yeah.
So.
Pixar, it didn't happen. So, yeah, the one thing that most people know about NASA is usually the stuff that goes wrong, because it goes wrong usually very spectacularly and costs a lot of money, and then people start bitching about, oh, what's the point of even doing this if this happens? Which, I was just looking it up, there were 135 space shuttle missions.
Okay.
2 went wrong.
So that's impressive.
That's a
really.
very good track record. That's less than 1%. That's amazing.
Especially when you think about the fact that they're launching these things that weigh like hundreds of thousands of pounds into space.
Yeah.
You'd expect a lot more to go wrong than actually does.
Yeah, and that was when we were talking about the Skylab, I was thinking it's kind of for the best that they weren't able to get up there and fix it because it kept on breaking. There are always all these problems, and if you're going to be going into space, I think you would want to essentially be in a bunker, but in space. You want to be in the absolute most safe thing because there's so many things that could go wrong, and there's so many horrible ways you could die, and it's scary too because you have to go through so much psychological evaluation just to get up there. And there was recently that one astronaut in the United States a few years ago that was in the love triangle.
Yes, I do remember that.
Yeah, that was. I always pictured her driving cross country in the astronaut suit, but I think
I did too. And
yeah,
I feel like that's absolutely not true.
Pretty sure that probably never happened, but it makes a much better mental image, doesn't it?
Really, really does.
Yeah. Obviously, though, the most famous mess up that NASA ever had would be Apollo 13 because of Tom Hanks. It didn't go wrong because of Tom Hanks, but he's the reason why it's popular.
Can I just say something right now?
Yes.
While I was watching Corey type up the notes for this podcast, instead of typing what actually happened on Apollo 13, he just writes out Tom Hanks.
Yeah, I put Apollo 13 – things went wrong, Tom Hanks saved the day, and that I fell asleep when I watched the movie at a drive-in. Yeah, it was the worst drive. It was a double feature, Waterworld followed by Apollo 13.
Why wouldn't they put Apollo 13 first so you'd at least fall asleep during Waterworld?
I fell asleep during both of them.
That's sad.
I was 7. I shouldn't have been at a drive-through. And now, I'm so sad that I don't know. Like, there are still a few drive-throughs, and I think there's one somewhere near Calgary.
Yeah.
But,
it can happen.
Yeah, it's such a cool. I think if someone had the money, it could totally go through a good revival.
I'd like one.
Yeah.
It's more fun. Movies outdoors, you know.
Yeah, yeah. It's you can watch new-ish stuff. You can watch cult classic stuff. I recently read a thing which had it was Empire Magazine's 100 best movies ever made, and Evil Dead 2 was on there, which is one of my favorite movies. It was like number 46, and I was like, there's no reason why this movie should be on here, but I'm so glad that it is. Have you ever seen it?
I haven't.
You know who Bruce Campbell is?
Yes.
Okay. That was the first movie he did was Evil Dead that really got a bunch of acclaim. Evil Dead 2 is basically a remake,
Okay.
but it's funnier and I think a lot better than the first one. A lot of people find the first one to be boring or I just find it boring and kind of gross. So, but that's kind of what you want with a crappy B movie. Not the boring, just the gross.
Yeah, just the ridiculous.
Lots of
gore.
blood and eyeballs popping out and people accidentally swallowing them and getting stabbed in the ankles with pencils by witches in the cellar.
You're spoiling this movie.
Look, it's all out of context, though. You don't know when any of this is going to happen.
Now I'm just nervous about watching it.
All right. I still think you should watch it because it's pretty great. The most recent, the space shuttle program, with the errors that happened was that with the errors that happened with that would have been the Challenger in 1986, which, yeah, if you see video of that, that was just tragic and colossal. It was just so huge and awful.
Mm-hmm. The saddest story I've always heard about that is, so one of the people on board was a teacher, right?
Yeah.
Her whole class was watching it live.
Oh,
that
that's
just
bad.
breaks my heart. Like, I can't imagine being the substitute, having to, like, deal with those kids. And,
Yeah.
like, even know what to say in that situation.
And if, like, do you know what grade the teacher taught?
It was elementary, from what I recall. So,
Jeez.
yeah, it's tough.
If it's young enough, they might not understand death, but it would still be just an awful thing to see.
Mm-hmm.
And if you did understand it, you're so fragile because you're still a little kid, and it's terrible.
That's the thing about dying in space, right? It doesn't, like, enough things go wrong. There's nothing you can do. Like, it's not like you're at the top of a tall building. You could, I don't know, magically parachute down and only just break your leg or something.
Yeah. And even if they did, you'd burn up on reentry. There's been a few movies that I've seen where someone is just like in a spacesuit, so they have oxygen at least for a while, and then they just kind of drift off into the nothingness.
That's terrifying.
That is, yeah. Like I know a lot of people are scared of the ocean. I'm a little bit scared of it. I only just saw it for the first time a couple of years ago.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I went to Victoria for a wedding, and I got to actually see the ocean, and it's so big. And I would really like to go on a cruise or some sort of like sailing ship and kind of experience being in absolute nowhere, but at the same time that seems so mind-bogglingly scary.
It's very weird.
Yeah.
It's a weird sensation.
And then just to be in space where it's not just on the horizontal plane where there's nothing. It's vertical plane. It's everything. It's X, Y, and Z if you're doing geometry.
Yeah, no, the largeness of space freaks me out, especially the idea that it not only is space infinite, but ever expanding.
Yeah.
Very tough concept to even, like, try and wrap your mind around.
Mm-hmm. Do you think it'll, there's theories that it'll either continue expanding forever and ever and ever, and then there's also, with the Big Bang, there's the Big Crunch, where everything just snaps back?
I personally sort of subscribe to the Big Crunch theory. I'm really interested in, like, space-time and stuff like that, and the way that time loops.
Yeah.
So if time is not directional, is circular, it would make a lot of sense to me that there's a Big Crunch, because everything would come back and everything would, go out again at some point.
Yeah.
You know, it's sort of an explanation, and not necessarily a comforting explanation, but
yeah,
it makes sense.
And you have this demonstrated with the tattoo that you recently got?
Yes, I have a circle tattoo on my arm, because I'm a nerd.
Yeah, I don't really believe the idea that time is cyclical, but I do kind of believe in the Big Crunch thing. Or at the very least, it'll sometimes just maybe, like, the expansion will just stop. The reason I subscribe to the whole Big Crunch theory, though, is to me based on the entropy. Because everything breaks, everything decays, everything. It's an extremely horrible thing to constantly think about. But when I was quite young and went through some bad stuff, I started kind of thinking, you know, entropy is the only really thing you can depend upon. Everything will break, everything will fail, everything.
It's all chaos theory, right? Everything is not going to organize
Well,
itself. It's going to get stranger and more messed up.
yeah, with chaos theory, though, the thing about chaos is that it's not all about destruction. It's not all about decay. It's also about, you know, the miracle of life and stuff like that.
Yeah, evolution.
Hmm
It's all
hmm
part of it.
Yeah, it's this has been an extremely depressing podcast so far.
But it's not. We can use this as like a plug for NASA. Like, we have all these questions, all these sad things are happening.
Yeah.
And if NASA had money, they could research and fix it.
I'll totally send this recording to NASA and say, like, can you please, you know, respond to this?
Yeah, so we can live in a future space utopia one day.
Yeah, yeah. I bet if I did that, the first thing they would say, okay, first of all, the Civil War did not happen in 1915.
They would turn it off after that.
They'd be like, this guy's a moron. Easily not one of my proudest moments, and I'm totally keeping it.
I'm glad.
Yeah. Every episode has involved me at least at one point just being absolutely ashamed with something that I've said.
I think this says something about you.
I think it's a good track record. I'm keeping a theme throughout.
Corey's horrible mistake.
Yeah, I have a lot of I have a huge amount of passion for geeky things, but don't know shit about them. It's all just horrible mistakes after horrible mistakes. The most recent kind of space type thing that I could ever remember, I know they recently had the final space shuttle launch, which kind of depressing.
Which I watched live on Vimeo and cried a little bit when it happened.
I totally don't blame you. Like, some people are probably, you know, scoffing, saying, like, who would cry about that? I think a lot of people that give a shit about the future of humankind probably were crying a bit. Yeah, but other than that, one of the bigger things in my mind was when the rover landed on Mars. That was in 2001 or 2, like early 2000s.
That sounds correct.
Yeah. Post or pre 9/11?
I'd say I'm even thinking maybe 2003.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember when that happened, and I was so excited. I remember I was in high school. Teachers had the TVs on, and we were watching it, and it's like, these are the first images live from Mars, and I was so excited. I was like, finally, we're gonna start. This is the beginning of space exploration again. This is JFK's dream point 2, and then nothing happened, and then the rover broke, didn't it?
Yeah, yes, it did.
After that, the only stuff I would ever hear about the rover was YouTube videos of conspiracy nuts saying that the YouTube rover was attacked by aliens, and there's just video from the rover, and like, you see this rock, it's not there now, and just come on. And so that's a big problem with space, and especially when whenever there's a government agency for anything, people are always going to be doubting anything that is put forward by them.
Of course. I don't think there's much wrong with that, though. Like, I think it's good to question everything. Even if you're saying they're space aliens, you know, and it's a Ray Bradbury situation.
Yeah. So that's your roundabout way of saying that the moon landing never happened?
Yes.
Yeah, totally, yeah. Because the flag shouldn't be able to wave.
Yeah, it's a soundstage in Jersey, man. That's what happened.
That argument that the flag shouldn't be able to wave, people apparently don't understand how cloth works.
Also, there is air in space. Like, it may not be the air we breathe, but there is something.
I thought it was the vacuum. Isn't there, like, nothing?
Well, there is gravity on the moon. There's a very small amount of gravity, but there is gravity.
But it doesn't have an atmosphere.
No.
So isn't atmosphere air?
Yes.
So
but I could technically say there's air in space, too, out in space. But, like, you know what I mean.
Yeah, air is a vague term. Like,
I should have been more specific about it.
It was both of our fault. We're both terrible people.
That was my horrible mistake for this episode.
Yeah, you're 1 versus my 6 or so.
That's alright.
Thing about the Mars rover was I did not know this. I learned this when I was quickly typing up my notes for this. The first Mars landing was actually in 1976, Viking 1, but I kind of assumed that was more just essentially shooting a probe at the moon, like what they did and still do, but except this time it was Mars, and they hit it, and they probably had champagne.
Yeah.
Because that's a lot of math that goes into that. Because it's these massive things which are moving, and then you need to get the speed right, you need to get the trajectory right, you need to make it hit the thing so it doesn't immediately explode when it hits, even though I have heard about probes where they do just shoot them with the intent of them exploding.
Well,
Just
that's what they just did on the moon recently with
yeah,
when they were looking for ice.
yeah, yeah. And didn't the Mars was it Mars or the Moon that they found like traces of life? That was
Life?
Mars. Yeah, yeah, like little bacteria, not like footprints or anything.
Are you talking about the most recent one? Because that was an asteroid that they found
No,
bacteria
I think it was Mars. I didn't hear about this asteroid one though.
on. Yeah.
What's with that?
It's bacteria that was, I believe okay, I believe that scientists believe
Uh-huh.
that it came from Earth when a meteor, hit the Earth during the dinosaurs and like chunks of stuff got knocked off into space. They think it's from that.
Oh,
But there was also another one recently with arsenic-based life forms, but that was on Earth.
there's arsenic-based life forms.
Yeah, it's actually a really cool discovery. It's
Are they the ones that like live in volcano water, basically,
yeah,
like
pretty much.
underground?
It's not nice conditions, but it
Yeah,
proves now that not all life forms have to be
carbon-based.
carbon-based. Exactly.
That
So
is amazing.
it really opens up the search for,
Wow.
I'm
I,
sure SETI was so excited when they heard about it.
yeah, yeah. I remember hearing about that, but I don't. I never read or heard that they were actually arsenic-based life forms, which
Mhm.
is baffling to me and
Well,
still so cool.
NASA at the time had scheduled a press release for that week.
Yeah.
And they said it would have to do with the search for life forms. So me and pretty much every other nerd out there
Uh-huh.
was like freaking out all week thinking we found alien life, right?
Yeah.
And it turns out it was researchers had, and I believe they actually like grew the life forms at lab
Oh wow.
and confirmed that they could live. So it was like now in our search we can revisit places and realize that life doesn't have to look the way we expected it to.
Mm-hmm.
So it was actually a letdown for a lot of people because they expected a big announcement. But
Yeah, like Roswell really happened, and yeah,
aliens are here on Earth.
they recently released a slightly less redacted. I think that's the right term. I think I'm saying this properly. Slightly less redacted the paperwork on the Roswell incident,
Oh really?
and I read it.
Yeah.
And the slightly less redacted version is still it's just like there was something, it crashed, and that's about it. So it doesn't. So many people when that came out were like, "This is still bullshit. Clearly they have aliens. There nothing is clearly about that they have aliens or anything. You believe in alien life, of course, right?
I hope alien life exists. I think it would be pretty silly if we were the only things out there.
Yeah.
So
Um.
that's my thought.
Do you think it necessarily has to be a double helix?
No,
No.
but I also know very, very little about biology. So.
Yeah, I hated biology. I hated it so much. I'm not good at science at all. I'm interested mostly in physics, but only like the not the actual math and stuff, just the ideas behind it.
Well, theoretical physics is similar to reading philosophy.
Exactly. Yeah, and I'm a huge philosophy nerd, so it's also yeah, it's the quantum physics as basically science and philosophy put together, in my opinion.
A little bit.
Yeah, it's mostly science.
Yeah.
I'm not saying like it's equal parts, like Buddha and then quarks are all yeah, but
Well, I think it's just the ideas behind quantum physics are so integral to like the big questions, like why we're here, even like what is the Higgs boson or something, like
Mhm.
stuff that would explain more about life.
mhm.
That's why, everyone is interested in it, not just, total nerds.
Yeah, yeah. The Large Hadron Collider.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the build up to that when they were going to turn it on, and so many people were horrified about
That
it.
would
Like,
create a black hole and destroy the whole Earth.
yeah, and the thing is that there were chances of that happening. Black hole or just a whole number of other things.
They were very, very small.
Very small, but still at the same time, there's that nice little bit of danger. It made it sexy,
So do you think that was worth it then?
Oh hell yeah!
Yeah?
To me, if there's a chance of destroying everything, that's all the more reason to do it. Because if it doesn't, then like, awesome. And if it does, well, you had a good run. You tried.
I'm not sure what to say about that attitude, but good on you.
I told you I had a period where I was obsessed with entropy. Like,
Okay, I see it. This is all your moody teenage phase.
yeah.
But
Well,
it's very scientific. Like, this isn't just emo poetry.
no. It's stuff I thought about. I did read a lot of philosophy. I read a bit of science, very little science, but a bit. And regarding the whole philosophy and the chance of destroying everything with science, I think it's worth the shot. And did you hear about the massive amount of people that claim to be time travelers? And
No,
oh yeah, there was at least 5 people that showed up at the Large Hadron Collider claiming to be from the future.
that's great. What proof did they give? Did they have lottery numbers?
Weird
Like,
clothes, and that was about it.
it's weird clothes. I could pull that off. I could be a time traveler.
No, you dress very well. You could be a time traveler from the past, though.
That's even better. That's more fun.
Yeah,
Just be confused by all these modern appliances. I could do that. I don't know how microwaves work. So there we go.
My initial reaction was, how do you not know how a microwave works? And then I started thinking, how does a microwave work? I really don't know. And
I understand the basic principles, but
yeah,
it's no different than magic.
yeah, I understand how an easy bake oven works. And that I've always kind of assumed was the same for microwaves to a degree, which I know is not correct, but that's just how I think of it. Makes it easier for me to cook my food.
In your easy bake oven.
Yeah, my giant easy bake oven. Takes a long time to make a pizza in there, but so worth it.
Delicious.
So good. Getting back to space as opposed to just science in general, you mentioned the Pioneer and Voyager programs. What is the difference between the two of those?
I told you I didn't know that. Now you're quizzing me.
I'm not.
I
don't.
shame.
Look it. I'm old, slightly. I'm older than you, and my memory is going.
I don't know much at all about Pioneer, but what I do know about the Voyager craft is that they not only are they research gathering satellites, like they're unmanned. Actually, Voyager, I believe it's Voyager 2 is just passing Saturn right now.
Yeah.
Which is amazing because it's been going for like 25 years.
Yeah, yeah.
But they had a message convoy that was a collaboration between, philosophers and musicians and scientists. And it's basically a message meant to represent
this is what we are.
Humanity, exactly. Yeah. So it shows our location in the solar system. It has some chemistry. It has a depiction of what humans' physical appearance is like.
It has ocean sounds. It has a lot like nature sounds. It has music. I don't know what the songs are, but yeah, it's the thing is it's inscribed on like a golden disc too, isn't it? And in my mind, that kind of almost makes me think of the Mayan calendar because I always picture that as a big disc. And
well, it is. It's just made of stone, not gold.
Yeah. It's just I don't know where I was going with that, but with the golden disc and all that, in the recent movie Battleship.
Where is this going?
The Voyager was the reason the aliens attacked in the movie Battleship.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I guess the aliens were offended that someone would dare say, like, hey, this is where we are, this is what we look like, this is our music, this is what the ocean sounds like. And then,
or they just, like, really hate our music, and they're like, any planet with this on it should be destroyed immediately.
Yeah, it's a CD with nothing but Scott Joplin. Just the entertainer.
So much anger.
Yeah. Whenever I hear that the Voyager is just going past like Saturn or something, it's been 25 years in my mind, because whenever I picture the universe, I picture, well, not the universe, the solar system, the way it looks in an elementary school poster. And when I hear it's taken 25 years, I understand space is very big. But I don't know. I feel like it should be a little bit farther along. Like the Hubble telescope, that thing kept breaking. How far did that went out fairly far too, though, didn't it? Whereabout? That didn't get up to Pluto. No, didn't it get to about Jupiter?
Didn't they want to keep it in the orbit of Jupiter? Like, wasn't that its original intention?
Maybe, yeah.
Well, I know its successor, the James Webb, it'll be in orbit around the sun. That's its plan.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Because it is the coolest telescope ever invented.
Yeah, and you want to have nothing but blinding light?
No, the cool thing is, so it's far enough to be out of the Earth's shadow, and it's going to show us stuff like, let's say I'm other side of the sun, and we're not on that side.
Oh.
But the coolest thing about it is, so it has the biggest reach of any telescope ever. It's something like 2 or 3 times the size of the Hubble.
Oh, wow.
And it will allow us to look so far into space that we will be seeing like 13 billion years into the past.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so we're going to see shortly after the universe was created through this telescope.
Wow, that's cool.
It's the coolest thing ever.
Yeah. One thing about space, again, too, is it's so intertwined with time because of the light from stars that we see are most likely dead stars, the majority of them, if not all of them. Yeah, it's almost it's kind of hard to wrap your head around because you see them and in your head it's like, oh, well, there's the stars, there's the lights that are always there, and then to think that that's not actually there, that's just extremely old light still traveling towards Earth, which is so cool, but it's hard for me to wrap my head around sometimes, you know?
The way I always think about it is that if, let's say, something happened to the sun, like the sun, a giant black hole appeared near the sun and sucked it in, we wouldn't realize something had happened until 8 minutes later.
Yeah, we'd get to see the sun get destroyed and then have time to worry, which is a horrifying thing. Yeah, the one thing about the sun that I recently downloaded, that Here Comes Science, that They Might Be Giants album, and they have that one song in there which I absolutely love, which What Makes the Sun Shine. And yeah, so the sun the sun is a mass of incandescent gas, a gigantic nuclear furnace. I'm not going to continue singing because you looked at me so disapprovingly.
No, I was just thinking that you should always sing space songs. Or you should sing a relevant song on each podcast episode.
There's been there was singing on another one, except that was I was talking to my friend Pete, and he was talking about something regarding coolness, and said, like Metallica and Nickelback, they used to be cool, and now they're not anymore. It's like, well, the problem with that is that they never were cool.
Yeah.
Nickelback sucks, yeah.
I don't think that was ever cool.
And I sang the two lines that I remembered, which I'm not going to rehash here.
You're not going to rock out to some Nickelback on our classy space podcast?
No, I don't feel like serenading you with poorly sung, well, even worsely sung Nickelback.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, you should.
You.
Yeah. My singing voice is generally kind of depressing, I find. You've heard about people sending dead bodies out into space, like a space funeral, right?
Yeah, like Scotty.
That happened to Scotty?
Yeah, so Scotty from Star Trek, when he died, his ashes were shot out of like a rocket into space.
Are they in orbit?
I have no idea.
Is it like his ashes, or is it his actual body?
I want to picture it as his body, but it's his ashes.
I picture a space coffin with a window just at the face.
James Doohan just launching off.
Yeah, and just inscribed as Scotty, not his actual name. Yeah. So they just launch ashes just blindly into space?
Well, there is a lot of, space debris is actually becoming a problem.
Yeah, there's a lot of garbage out there from broken machines filled with dead Russian monkeys.
Well, there was actually kind of a bit of a worry about that. I think it was back in September.
Yeah.
So there was an old satellite that was, scheduled to come crashing down to Earth.
Yeah.
There was a very good chance, and by very good I mean 10%, that it would land in a populated center. Because when it was due to come down, over the northern part of North America.
Yeah.
So at the time I was like, what if tomorrow I get taken out by a rogue satellite?
That's totally possible. Yeah.
It did end up, calculations were then refined, and it turned out it was going to end up in the ocean, and it did fall into the ocean.
That's a very lucky thing about having 70% of the Earth's surface being water.
Yeah, we won't get crushed by James Doohan falling back to
the I remember hearing about this. I don't know if it's already happened or if it's going to happen this year, but there was they discovered an asteroid was going to be passing close to Earth. It will be closer to the Earth than the Moon is, which they said the majority of scientists are saying this will not. There's no chance of it hitting Earth, or the chances are so slight. And then the end of the news report was the person said, despite that, they still say you should probably get your wills ready. Which is, don't say that in a newscast. Just say there's an asteroid coming, it won't hit us. And don't say, prepare for death, just in case.
Well, there are a couple of asteroids coming, not anytime soon, not in the next 20 years, but in the next, 500, that actually have a higher probability of hitting Earth. And, again, this is the reason we should be out to terraform and colonize other planets, because we really have all of our eggs in one basket.
Yeah, and we've landed on the moon. They were planning on going to put a permanent base on the moon, which they recently kiboshed because money wasn't there. But I genuinely think that's the only thing that humankind can do to possibly save ourselves, if not from extraterrestrial intervention, to put it kindly, than like the asteroids or eventually the sun exploding if we can even get out of the solar system, which won't happen for a ridiculously long time. Even if we started going whole hog on space exploration now, you can buy real estate on the moon right now.
I want a moon acreage.
Moon acreage, yeah, so you
Yeah.
can have moon cows,
I plan on just retiring there.
have a moon farm,
Yep, gazing upon Earth occasionally.
yeah, going to the moon coop with the moon chickens.
Are there any more moon puns you can make?
These
right
aren't
now?
puns, they're just
They're
extremely stupid
Terrible
terms.
jokes, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I wouldn't even call them jokes, just me.
Yeah, just words.
Yeah, I'm just
Words
talking
that
and,
aren't funny.
and making people sad. It just, yeah, they're depressing. Would you ever have your body sent into space?
I don't plan on dying, so I can't answer your question.
Okay.
And there's a serious answer.
All right. That's I got some bad news for you, you know.
No way, man.
No?
No way.
What, vampires? How are you gonna continue living?
Transhumanism. I'm gonna be like Ray Kurzweil. I'm gonna take 200 pills a day, and then when they invent, enough technology to keep me alive forever, they just this month they increased mice's
Mices?
lifespans by 24% with no side effects.
24%.
Is a big amount.
No, I'm not like discrediting you. Like that is a lot.
It's incredible.
That's a quarter,
So
basically.
They've
But
done a lot of tests like that, and so they can extend human life quite far. They're just not willing to start human trials, and if you wanted to pay for it, it would be very expensive.
yeah. Well, like even in the Middle Ages, you would be elderly by the time you hit 40. That was life expectancy, and now its life expectancy is about 90, which
sure.
that's in the long scheme of things, not a long time for us to have extended our lifetime already. What was the guy's name that's taking the pills and stuff?
Ray Kurzweil.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that. There's a documentary about him that I meant to watch and never did.
You should watch it. It's called Transcendent Man, and it is a very good movie.
So you believe that taking pills and stuff as opposed to eating?
No, I think he's crazy, but
Okay.
I also think he's made some very strong predictions. Like he's a smart man.
Oh yeah, I've heard some of his predictions and he's right like 90% of the time too, which is great.
Well, the thing is, he talks about like Moore's law, right? And like how our computing power is just so exponential.
Yeah.
Like it's eclipsing everything. And I think the same thing is to be said for the way our technology and medical technology is going.
Yeah, yeah.
So even though probably immortality isn't in the plans yet, I think we can realistically
Extend our lifespans fairly well.
I'm young, and if I get 24% extension in the next 10 years, and then 20 years or 30 years from now, I get another 24% extension, I can do okay.
Yeah, yeah. I hear one of the reasons that people are aging, able to age more and aging a little bit better are due to actually preservatives in food, which preservatives aren't good, but then they are extending lifespan.
But the funny thing about those side effects is most of the people eating those preservatives are not the people who will see those effects. Because those are the people that die early of obesity.
Yeah,
stuff.
obesity and cancer and horrible things.
Exactly.
Yeah, they're living longer and suffering more, which is a cheerful way to, I think, wrap this up. We've been, yeah. Do you have any final thoughts about NASA?
It's awesome, and everyone should throw their money at it.
Okay, cool. Do you have anything you'd like to plug or promote before we sign off?
NASA, mostly.
NASA? Okay.
No, that doesn't work as a Canadian. Move to America, give all your savings to NASA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was NASA. This was Sarah. Thank you for doing this with me.
Thank you.
And this was Geektionary.